See, go ahead.
All right. So I
Good
can
afternoon, everybody.
Yeah.
So we'd like to welcome and thank Darryl Hell and Michael. I'm going to butcher
Carrasquillo.
this. Carrasquillo,
Right.
to the show from Abstinence. Thank you for joining today. Thank you both for your time. I know it's valuable.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank
Just
you for
going to
having
jump
us.
right into this one.
Right on.
Darryl, can you please talk to us about your roots in the punk scene?
Wow. Punk rock, new wave, let's start where it started. New wave had really come around uh at the same time that I was like really in my developing years. So like 72, 73, that kind of thing. As things were happening and I was listening to college radio, that was my lifeline to eclectic music on that side.
Mine
The
too.
really what brought me to punk rock was prog rock.
Mhm.
So then the idea of non-conventional compositional styles really, or my love for it, really came from prog rock, and
Oh, wow.
then punk rock had really fit perfectly into that canon for two reasons. One, the idea of the non-traditional compositional styles, and then secondly, and really most importantly, because of the content. Right. So then, like, while if you, I always tell people to go back and look at what was popular then in any time during that period, because when they say things like pop punk or whatever, I'm
Mhm.
like, you do realize that those two things are diametrically opposed, right? Like there's no such thing as pop punk, pop industrial,
Right.
like, and if you think there is, like, go and I'm a high school teacher, so go ask some kids about like any industrial band that you think is popular. Ask a 14-year-old, just go ask your average 14-year-old who they are and see if they can answer the question.
Yeah.
And that'll show you how obscure it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the idea that so for me, the my I'm lucky enough that like my whole develop everything that I developed doing, I was first generation, so it was before it was even capable of making money.
Mhm.
And I knew that like as a first generation hardcore punk rocker, well, punk rocker in general, but as a musician, first generation hardcore punk rocker, I knew that the music that I was playing in public disturbance, we got our little due, but in other words, like there was no way that we were going to be able to live on
Yeah.
anything like that, like, and so, and then when I switched in 85 into playing industrial, and when public disturbance broke up, um then, I mean, there was no money in industrial either.
Yeah.
So then, nor did I ever even think of it like from that perspective. Like I think that, and I know that that'll be deeper in the interview, but just to kind of give that a period, for me, it's important that, like, we don't drag rock and roll tropes into eclectic art forms, because the whole point, we were running away from that
Mhm.
in the 70s. We weren't cousins to mainstream rock and roll. We were antithetical to mainstream rock and roll.
Yeah.
So then as people came in, especially the later generations, they didn't have the same kind of disconnect from that culture. So then they wanted to bring those tropes into the art forms. That's why you get these kind of things where people thought that like a lot of the bands, certainly a lot of the industrial bands, well, actually, I'll back up. A lot of the punk bands that I grew up playing with, a lot of those people, especially when the scene started to get some attention in the mid 80s, they thought they were going to turn into rock stars.
Mhm.
So then, like, they got their little due, got some big tours, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, that wasn't music that was going to support you. So then
Yeah.
we really so a lot of kind of mainstream tropes got dragged into what should have really remained an eclectic art form. So that's kind of like, for me, it's about holding true to that. Hence
Mm.
why I'm like a high school teacher, and or why I always felt like it was important to generate revenue otherwise. So that way I had my art form that could be pure, and then to to my uh to my roots, if you will. Actually, not even say if you will, to stay true to my roots, so that way I wouldn't find myself like compromised, and the idea that I also wouldn't find myself at how I put it, a victim to the idea of, like, if we don't get popular,
We won't make
then that means we have to break up, because, like,
it.
now we got to go do real things and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we didn't all of a sudden we weren't going to generate revenue. And that really wasn't realistic anyway. It wasn't realistic in the 80s, when I called everybody world traveling ramen eaters. A lot of people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they would go on big tours and so on and so forth, but they come back, they got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they eat
Like
ramen
Joey,
noodles.
Joey Ramone, you know?
Right. This
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and I'm not hating on the model. I'm just saying the idea that that wasn't a model that I would find
Yeah.
acceptable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
I
I'm
can
not saying like what anybody else should do, but I'm saying for myself, I saw it as like punk rock was the idea of thinking through things differently. So
Yeah.
then why
Mm.
was I going to go and jump into the same mill and force
Yeah.
myself into choices that I didn't want to make, when I was in an art form that those industries didn't care about anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta
Well, that's
say,
beautiful.
I
Thank you, man.
I gotta say, like, for me, it's like the world traveling ramen noodle thing is it hits dead on, because
Yeah.
I mean, I went on a few rounds in this country, and you come home and you realize you spent most of your money on well, for the Slickety tour that I did, like, I spent most of it on phone cards to call
Yeah.
my
Mm.
house,
Okay.
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
and to get for per diems were obviously to eat something or to whatever, but
Yeah.
it's just by the time you get done with that tour, you're like, what am I mean, I'm out here, I'm experiencing
Yeah.
something, but like I spent most of it on, I mean, arguably, I guess now that they have cell phones, I mean, it might be a different situation, but I'm sure there'll be some other thing that turns it into a traveling
Yeah.
ramen noodle circus. You know what I mean?
I'm living proof. I'm living proof. I mean, like Darryl said, I toured and I toured my ass off, get home, all the bills are paid, you know, with the label and stuff. But it just wasn't, I started getting a little appetite to play with, in other situations.
Yeah.
And so that's how come I wound up playing in different bands. People say, Levi, that motherfucker's in this and that. But that's because I like playing. So
Did you have for you, like, when you got off of tours, did you have, like, similar to what would happen to me, which is you would have this huge adrenaline rush for so long, and then
yeah,
of course the expenses and coming back to not
yeah,
much, and then you'd have
yeah,
this like crash. So would
yeah.
you take that crash and try to find another thing to do to circumvent that
Oh
crash?
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That yeah. Oh, automatically. I mean, that was the luxury of playing out with other people. I would get off a tour, in about a week or so. I'm like, damn, you
Yeah.
know, you know, I'm in domestic mode, and then I jump. Someone would say, "We're going on tour, doing a tour." Levi, he'll come up, he'll fill in, he'll pick up really quick.
Yeah.
We hurry up and get this down. And so I dealt with that, and that would go up. But then after a while, I'm telling you what I started doing is I started not spending that money. I wouldn't spend the money on the eats. Uh, I make me a sandwich. I go somewhere, make me something really quick, and I really got to save. You know, and then a lot of people you know, you get a lot of things, a lot of perks being on the road and stuff. But I really took those serious, you know.
I think
And
people need,
sometimes,
yeah, I think people need to realize, like, to not romanticize what it
uh-huh,
is to be in something like this. And going back to what Darryl said, is like, there's a
yeah,
purest thing about it. Like, you do
yeah,
this to express yourself, and
yeah,
you have the opportunity and the pleasure and the to be out there and entertaining people, but also
mhm,
standing for something in a movement and everything. And you realize, like,
yeah,
we don't do this for money, but there's also emotional tolls to this. There's
mhm,
chemical changes that happen, and you have to balance all that stuff, but you also have to be strong in your core to be able to do something like this, because you do stand up for something, because you're part of a movement, but and you're trying to share that. But it's there's a lot of other things behind it, you know.
yeah. So yeah, so with it's really cool. I'm glad Daryl invited me in on abstinence, and the I need to do a little more history on Daryl. Can you tell us about abstinence? Abstinence, you know.
Well, basically, abstinence was the outbirth of I was the bass teacher to Steve Herring, who was the person I founded Abstinence with. And uh he was a pro skater, pro BMX freestyler, so on and so forth. So we both were riding, like we were
Mhm,
both touring a lot. He rode for Alva, and he rode for Alva skate team. We did a lot of tours with Life's a Beach,
oh,
where it was like Alva and Life's a Beach. We had, and Jim Murphy was one of the lead people on that. We were all grew up together.
Oh, wow.
So then I was teaching him bass, and we were basically going over, like, he loved a lot of, at that point, what we call death rock. So then I was, as a bass teacher, I was teaching. I would do two things. I would teach technique on one side, but then I really wanted to have people kind of learn through their own art. So then I would say, well, pick songs for me to teach you. So then I was teaching him a lot of Joy Division, so on, Killing Joke, so on and so forth.
mhm,
And so then as we were just kind of jamming, he had a Boss drum machine. And so we would just kind of jam, and uh my style kind of crosses over because of my influences, like Jerry Franklin, who's also in the band, who's my oldest collaborator
Oh, wow.
mhm,
from our teen years. Jerry's an amazing guitar player, just epic. And so my style kind of crosses over between kind of bass, lead bass, and like guitar, chunky stuff,
Yeah.
whatever.
yeah,
And so in any case, but Steve was playing a Rick, and so his sound, like, it was like this perfect balance of me playing these kind of middle bass picky things, and
mhm,
him doing things that had a lot more attack.
yeah.
And so then that was the foundation of what turned into Abstinence. And
Oh,
then I was really like, if I could back up a second, in 82, I got to see our daughter's wedding, and it changed my life, because our daughter's wedding, although I had heard many non-traditional art like art music type
Yeah.
bands, I
mhm,
hadn't seen any live. And so I turned 18 in 82. And so they played the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Changed my life, because it was the first time I saw a band that a didn't have the bass player, drummer, guitar player set up.
mhm,
You know, it was like, and also what was dope was although they were using sequencers, if you watch our daughter's wedding, they're playing everything out. Those they're playing those things out live.
Yeah.
oh,
And so because of that, the energy of like playing keyboards like that, and the attack and such, then I had said in the middle of me being in in a hardcore band, I was like, this, I will have a band, something like that at some point, so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
Abstinence was the thing that really enabled, in one sense, the idea for me to go further into eclecticism, because hardcore punk rock had started to become formulaic, and by 84, you know,
Mhm.
it was basically had become a formula. B, it had gotten to the point also where you had just hardcore bands on shows. So like originally it was like, you know, a hardcore band, a ska band, a new wave band, so on and so forth, a
Yeah.
punk band, and like, you know, you get all these people would play on the same bill. And then as that got monocultured, so did the songs. And then the songs just started to sound like, you know, fast, slow, mosh, grind, okay, high speed, break, 1, 2,
Mhm.
what did he want? And so it, as that formula, to me, stopped the innovation, even though the lyrical content stayed consistent. For me, the break in
Yeah.
the break in a lot of the reason why we're doing this, because again, as it started to get popular, more people started to have like interests other than how to create interesting sonic art.
Mhm.
So then Abstinence was also my break, because it was the first band that I started. And
Yeah.
so Public Disturbance, I was the second bass player. So I got into Public Disturbance the day after they played with the Dead Kennedys.
Oh,
So
wow.
then for me, it was like I didn't have control of the band, because the band had already existed for 2.5 years or something like
Yeah.
that before I got, or
Yeah.
before I got into the band. So
Damn.
then a lot of the issues that I had about being in the band, and like the focus on kind of goof lyrics versus the idea of the things that we really talked about when we were by ourselves, it was just like, well, that's not reflected in our lyrics. And so for me, I wanted to have something that spoke directly to the militant idea of human rights, meaning
Yeah.
not
Okay.
like, so something that spoke to the idea of not human rights tomorrow, human rights right now.
Yeah.
RAT.
And
Right now.
absolutely not allowing any um loose ideas of like, because people say like, oh well, you know, you don't want to be pedantic, you don't want to just like batter people over the head with some kind of idea. And it's like, no, actually I want to.
I want to
Because
do
they're
that.
being battered over the head with ideas no matter what happens. So if you water
Precisely.
it down, they're being battered down by a watered down idea. But don't
Yeah.
think that it's not that one way or another, that we're not influencing people in some way or another. We're trying to get them into our artwork. So that really was the kind of the foundation of what turned into Abstinence, was the idea of like,
Uh,
also growing up in like, you know, in the heart of Rockville on the Jersey Shore.
Mhm.
um the kind of the condition of like, it was interesting when I started when I started Abstinence, it was unlistenable to all of my friends that I had been into music with for years. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you can't take this because it doesn't have like a drummer, a guitar player, and so on and so forth. But remember, we love Flipper. We love
Oh
the
yeah.
Germs. Like, how do
Yeah.
we like, you know, like, how do we love these things, but yet for some reason this is unlistenable? Like, I figure once you love the Germs, once
uh,
you love Flipper,
Yeah.
you can literally listen to anything.
Yeah. For
You
sure.
can listen to
yeah.
anything. Anything's open for suggestion and checking
Mhm.
out. Right. And
Yeah.
so, like, you know, so I found it odd that that was the case. And I was just like, well, really, I think I've hit pay dirt. And then really, very quickly, it became clear that as the 80s started to change, because I started Abstinence in 85, by time you get to 88, now there's an industrial scene
Mhm.
that's happening. And then when you get to the success of two things: one, the success of Trent Reznor, and two, the success of Land of Rape and Honey.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so those two things, basically what those two things did was they took a lot of the people, because like all the first generation industrial people came out of punk rock and hardcore and such. So we came out of already things that were
Yeah.
anti-mainstream culture.
Mhm.
A lot of that second generation that came into industrial music, they came out of the alternative world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So although they liked non-traditional art forms, they were more than comfortable with the rocker model, which was why in in the early 90s you started to see bands that never toured with drummers before tour with drummers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, because they had to have a
Yeah.
band, right? Because they had to have a real band to tour with. But
Yeah.
these were outside producers telling this. These weren't people that I even gave a
Yeah.
fuck about. So I'm like, why are these people? Why are these like rock mavens telling people what industrialists should do and how we should be? And
Yeah.
so, to me, those were the things that really broke a lot of I wrote voluminously about that in the early 90s, the what was turning into the break of industrial. And oddly enough, in 20 I think 2008 or 2009, I interviewed FM Einheit, and
Mm.
we were talking about the idea of why he decided to leave Einstürzen to start with, was
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like when he left Einstürzen, he was like, well, we were no longer innovative. We weren't
Right.
doing those
Right.
things, like all of a sudden, like and so I could use the example. Obviously I love Einstürzen, and that's not the point,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
I showed like right after the pandemic, I showed my wife a video of Einstürzen from they played in Germany somewhere in like 2019,
Yeah.
and it was at some art space, so on and so forth, and it was a dope performance.
Yeah. 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 I
But
saw that. Yeah.
right, but she
But yeah.
said, well, that was amazing, amazing. I'm like, all right, let me show you what brought me to this.
Yes. The 1983
Oh.
version.
And then I said, okay, so I showed her Audubon, and then I showed her Halber Mensch. And I said, well, this is what brought me to Einstürzen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the music that they do now, I would have had the same visceral response to. That
Mm.
Yeah.
doesn't
No, that's
mean that
a
it's not
good point.
good. It's
Yeah.
just the idea that it's not reaching. And to
Yeah.
me, the whole point of the genre is not to try to be a celebrity. I hated when I remember in the late 90s, I saw Skinny Puppy, and one somebody was kind of ogling an idea of Nivik. I can't remember. We were in like I was in the bar or whatever. But in any case, they were talking. They were like, oh, I was just like, hey, they're not a boy band.
Yeah.
Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Like, stop it. Like, but people want to drag in all those things, all those tropes that
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
running away from. So if you want to take like abstinence in a nutshell, the whole idea of the name abstinence, abstaining from the redundancy of what people think, the whole point
I
of that.
fucking love
We're
it, man. That's
we're
great.
we're abstaining from being a boy band, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but the idea, from the idea of really, if you think of the time that that statement was made, like even the name abstinence in itself turned into a problem, quote unquote problem, later, because they thought we were a Christian industrial band or something.
Yeah, I
And
think there is a
so,
Christian industrial band named Abstinence now, or
yeah,
Planned
yeah,
Abstinence, or
exactly.
something
And
like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
really?
like three
Wow.
bands that showed up,
Oh,
Yeah.
and
shit.
somebody asked
Yeah.
me, but I'll finish that point. The idea that, like, to me the idea that, like, since we were founded in the wreckage of the
Uh-huh.
Reagan administration, and that we were dealing with the just say no stuff, like we had stuff on our, we had all these signs that were the drug free school zone signs,
Mhm.
that I had gotten a whole bunch of them, and then I had switched them around so that, and they were seamless, you couldn't really tell, and especially in a crowd you couldn't tell. So they said school free drug zone. And so, like, so the whole point of that, though, is the idea that, like, the rock element had become so, to me, insidious, that it was taking away from any idea of real experimentation, because the moment that you give people a little bit of what they know, they'll run to 100% of what they're used to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, so that's the reason why all of a sudden the two things that got popular was, one, guitar based industrial, and two, mindless dance music.
Yeah.
Yeah, mindless dance
So,
music.
well, I say mindless just
Yeah.
because, again, talking to Genesis,
Yeah.
Peorage, we were talking about the idea of and I use these names intentionally. It's not name dropping from hell. I'm trying to make
Right,
a
right,
point
right, right.
that the idea that, like, these are seminal people. You can't say that Genesis isn't seminal, because we're only calling it
For
industrial
sure.
music
Yeah.
because they decided to call it industrial instead of
Sure.
factory. They were
Yeah.
going to call
Yeah.
it
Right,
factory records
Yeah.
as a nod to Warhol, but they
Yeah.
said it was too obvious. So then it's like, all
Yeah.
right, well, so in any case, but, like, the break in the idea of what was the roots of industrial turned into experimental
Yeah.
industrial,
Mm,
and we
mm.
got segmented off by the industry, who was
Yeah.
trying to sell mainstream industrial records. So
Yeah.
if they could sell
Mhm.
something, that's the reason why you had basically the kind of studio gangsterism of um industrial, the same way you did in hip hop, right?
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, like, you had all these, like, very comfortable living people. Everybody's angry about something, and it's just like, well, what are you exactly angry about? Because you're not fighting for it.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah,
if you're
right, right.
not fighting for it, then what you're doing is it just becomes a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
And the whole
Yeah.
point of this was activism.
Yeah.
Hence the idea of actually doing something, not just the idea of saying it. And so for me, that's the
Right.
reason why bands like Consolidated and such
Oh,
became
Yeah.
like, all the bands that had a message, including us, all became outliers to the bands that were easy to just go and hang out and have a good time, and I could listen to music, I could just bop my head, and we listened to some, and it had grindy vocals, and we could scream and it'd be good, and so on and so forth, and all the energy, but not the meaning. So Genesis talked
yeah.
about the idea of the problem that at first it was perfect, the marriage between dance beats and industrial non-conventional rhythms and lyrical content were a perfect marriage.
Yeah.
But then you had the break where the beat took over, and then you no longer had the message.
Yeah.
So then you have the same thing happen in hardcore punk rock, where that's where you had all these Nazi punks. It's like, wait a minute, were you listening to any of the lyrics? How do you
Yeah.
square the two? And so
Yeah.
we did the
Exactly.
same thing in industrial. You had all of a sudden this kind of break of right wing industrial. It's like, well,
Mhm.
that doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
But they
Mm.
still all came in, and were comfortable when they arrived.
Yeah.
So then there was
Yeah.
obviously a a welcome, a welcoming of them, that to me I felt uncomfortable with, especially since industrial was at first a home for all these other things and then it became a home for these other things that were less than what we originally bargained for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Excellent.
now we got to make now we have different. You have different soundscapes to do things, and different moods or attitude to do things without conforming or playing the game. You know, with I'm looking forward to doing the abstinence. You know, really do, and I want to look at it, take it from that point of view, and that's really good. That cuts through sharp. I understand what's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
have to say that I'm like, first and foremost, I'm honored to be inducted into abstinence with you, Charles.
thank you. I'm honoring myself, man.
We were both announced on the same day, and I was blown away by both of those. But I was like, holy shit, I'm in this band on the same day
Yeah.
Levi's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
awesome.
and it's funny that there was this conversation about, you know, being purist, and I came into this thing, of course, thinking, okay, I
Mhm.
need to bring in this formulaic process, and this is
Yeah.
really a, I'm really glad that Darryl brought me in, because basically it's now forcing me to actually sort of break down what it
Yeah.
is that brought me into this genre of music to begin
Yeah.
with, and a lot of
Exactly.
it was everything that he mentioned.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't get to exercise that stuff often,
Yeah.
and in this I get to sort of go, I can't think industry wise, I can't think I need to
Yeah.
have three chords in a melody, this is a breakdown of like emotion and playing something that is visceral and
Yeah.
that means something, and actually will sort of like uh bring people into an art headspace, which is
Yeah.
something I haven't done in a very long
Oh,
time. So yeah,
yeah, especially, yeah. I feel you, man. I mean, like now, all I want to do now, I want to play more.
Mm.
You know, I want to play anything. Um, just physically going through the motions. That's what I'm doing to defeat the purpose of me not getting the technical aspect of things. So, but I'm gonna get that going. I'm gonna get that going because I'm not a quitter. I'm a fucking brawler.
yes you are, yes you are, yes you
And I
are.
got to, and
Yeah,
I got,
right.
and thanks to Daryl's pumping me, keeping me going, and my other colleagues and stuff, and Randall Frazier. And so, that's what I got to do. I mean, looking forward for this interview, but now I'm even more looking forward to getting this track done
Yeah.
so I can introduce Abstinence to the next man, to the next phase.
Right.
Thank
Well,
you very much.
and we're gonna keep that as a little secret,
Yeah.
just because, like,
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was the only little leak of that.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
like, of what's gonna
No,
happen there.
I was
Yeah.
the same way. I was like, I was hoping that he wasn't gonna like let the cat out of the bag yet. I was like, hold shut up.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. It's a single leak is fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, that's cool. So
I
Levi?
gotta
now,
say, man, I don't know how you guys slipped my radar. I mean, this is absolutely right dead center of my wheelhouse for the things I love in music, and the socially conscious aspects of that, the activism and the want to change things. I mean, the literal want to change things. I mean, there's lip service, and then there's getting on and doing something about it.
yeah,
And I've always preferred that in my
Mhm.
music. And I've gotten the same thing from people. Why you want to beat people over the head all the time with your shit? It's like, hey, if you, I don't know. I have
Mhm.
stomach problems if I don't. That's so
Mm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, Joey,
Yeah, I think Levi wanted to read something. Levi?
Yeah. Well, Danny's taking my phone, from me. So, you know, I'm sure, she's on top of that. But
Well, if she brings it back, we can go cycle back to that.
yeah,
It's not a big deal.
yeah, exactly.
We'll
But
go back to that. Michael, so you were a drummer for NS from KMFDM's project, NS's project from KMFDM's Slick Idiot. Can you
That's right.
please talk about your involvement with that endeavor?
Well, I'm still working with Anesh. I'm now in his what would be his second phase solo career, because he did Cheesy as a solo thing back in the 80s, I believe, late 80s.
Best album released that year.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were talking about that off the air about what plans are for it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm honored to work with him, first of all, because KMFDM is part of what brought me into this genre. But a lot of Genesis stuff, they brought me into this as well. So I ran the gamut of the whole thing. So working with KMFDM in the Wax Tracks TBT family when I worked for the label, was part of that process. But then I got to become friends with Anesh, and when I got asked to become part of Slick Idiot, it was funny because Gordon Raphael, the guy who produced the Strokes record, I was playing in his band at the time, as I was a bass player in that band, and he said, I think Nick's gonna steal you. I think that's what's gonna happen. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. And sure enough, I get poached up by Anesh, and I get into Slick Idiot, and I got to say, like, I'm honored to do that because there's an energy that man has that it just, there's something about him, and it makes you want to sort of push harder. It makes you want to like really step up your game. He is an elder statesman like Levi, that these guys and like Darryl, all of you were in such pivotal times in the creation of this genre that someone who came in late like I did, I like to pay respects to the elder statesmen, and I feel like I tell Anesh this all the time. I'm like, if I was just 10 years younger, I would have been with you guys, like paving a lot of this as well. And I just always been excited about doing this stuff, and Slick Idiot was just a great starting point for me to work with a caliber like Anesh, and he's taught me a lot, and he's a wonderful person, and I really enjoy working with him. And we're doing a new record now, so it's just a continuation of that relationship, so I like it.
Excellent.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, Nick is one time we were this is a story I gotta tell you guys.
Please.
We were leaving the Metro, Cabaret Metro in Chicago, and I was all, bald. I'm looking like Levi. And Inesh was wearing he had two bandages on his head that after he shaved, he had scarred himself. The mascara was running. It had ran. The lipstick was all messed up. And then he had a thrift store shirt tied.
Yep.
And he had some pleated skirt with 18-hole Doc Martens. And he's walking. Me and him are walking to get some Mexican food, and all of a sudden, about 10 or 15 police cars. And they got their guns, and they're pointed out at me and him. And they look at the officer looked at me, and he looked at Nick, and he goes, he turned around with the gun in hand. Hell no, this ain't these
not what we were looking for.
Yeah, but after he said
that's
that,
awesome.
After he said that, they turned around and just looked at us. And Nick goes, Charles, what's wrong? And I go, man, these motherfuckers think they think we're retarded.
Yeah.
They thought we were the guys who robbed this Subway, and they looked at us like we retarded. So let's just, walk on, carry on, and just make it to the Mexican food, get some food, and but it was like it happened so quick out of like nowhere. It's just like 15 to 20 police cars.
Oh man.
They stopped, and we were crossing the intersection, and they were just stopped in front of the intersection in front of us, almost hitting us, and he didn't understand it. And I was like, "What the fuck?" You know, and I didn't have shit on me or nothing back then, and it was crazy, man. I'll never forget that. And Nick, I don't think he really took it in all in full. And he knows, Charles, what's wrong? Why did they come here? What did you do? I said, no, man. Look at your ass. They just came up and they thought me and you were dating.
Yeah.
So, and they said, damn, what an ugly group of a couple.
Yeah. I was out with one time with Nick at Motor City downtown, and there was this girl who was really drunk, and she was leaving, and apparently she was having an altercation. And I walk out with an Ash out of Motor City, and the police show up, and they're trying to they're being belligerent to the girl who's being belligerent back to the police. And Ash was like really upset about this. I guess he's been triggered by police just descending.
Yeah.
He was triggered. He was triggered severely by this, and he just jumped in front of the two or three police officers and was like, "Dude, man, what are you doing, man? She doesn't have an ID, man. What the fuck's wrong with you, man? You know, like." and I'm like,
that was
Nick,
a good
Nick,
that was actually a good invitation, man. That was dope. I'm sure he would appreciate that invitation.
Yeah, no, I'm like, Nick, come back, leave him alone. And so they turned around and they were starting to threaten him, and he started to get more belligerent. I'm like, Nick, come on, let's go. He's like, dude, man, she has no ID, man. It's fucking America, man. I'm like, oh, okay, calm down. I don't want you to get arrested, because they were really upset at her because she was being belligerent. So it's just, Nick is such an empathetic, feeling person that he really wants to fight for people's safety and emotional well-being and everything. And he's just a wonderful human being in that respect. And he's very intimidating looking, but he's
oh
a sweetheart.
My God. When I first saw him, oh my God, my mouth was like,
yeah. I mean, he comes to my house, and it's still surreal. I've known him for forever, and he comes to my house and he stands next to my kids and he towers over them, and he towers over all of us, and but he's such a sweetheart. And I mean, you just, I don't think people realize how wonderful of a person he is, because they just get so intimidated by him.
I know.
You know,
I saw them, and he was, doing when he was at KMFDM, and my son was like, "Look at that motherfucker! That freak is getting off." He was dancing.
Yeah.
He had a groove. He had a pocket. He had a groove that I think this KMFDM was missing. The Slick Idiot has it.
I'm gonna be quiet on that one. I'm just gonna be quiet.
Yeah. But I'll be quiet too. But and one time, him and Gunther and me did a show at the Metro where we were like an abstinence, sort of thing. It was total improv, and I don't know what happened to the recording, because we just did it live. We just went on stage and played, and that was a big thing for me because, I was like, wow. These guys have been playing their ass off for years. And
Nick is a phenomenal drummer, and he's
an amazing
guitar. I mean, he is the kind of musician that he's just a genius. I mean, I don't think people realize he's amazing.
Plays drums. Yeah. He plays drums on the Sister Machine Gun, Cocaine Jesus. I came in and they said they get stuck a bass and a joint in my mouth. Come on, Levi, put some doo-doo down. So I said, okay. And then I heard the drums. I said, man, what's with these drums? Who played drums? He goes, Nick did.
Yeah. And
it's just him and me and some soundscapes. And it was great. It was just a cool track. And that was my introduction to experiencing his geniusness.
Yeah.
Hey, just a clarification, because it's an interview, and
Yeah.
You said that it was because you had said that it was improv and like much like Abstinence.
Yeah.
Abstinence is not improv whatsoever,
Okay.
and
Right.
Abstinence is meticulously planned out and like
Yeah.
just building out the performance. Like
Uh-huh.
we have a performance matrix, for instance,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
then requires that like so that way everybody can know the instrument that they're playing
Yeah.
at different times throughout the set.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like it's a what Abstinence does is experimental musical performance or video performance art.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that's really how we see what we do. And just
Yeah.
a point of reference is the idea that I was in Emergency Broadcast Network. And
Uh-huh.
so from my time in EBN, like working with Josh Pearson is hands down one of the best editors and one of the most groundbreaking editors that I ever worked with, period. End of sentence.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that he got a uh, Academy Award for the documentary that was done about Harlem. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, he was the
okay.
sole editor on that.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can't remember it right now, but in any case, um, so for me, the idea of like this idea of you hear what you're seeing, what you're
Yeah.
hearing type thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
the aspect of that and like combining my video editing skills
Hmm.
with my production skills, that's the reason why we use a very complex underlay that then works and interacts with the idea of all the people performing live on stage. And so for instance, even where there's a track that I play bass and that I sing, and I can't sing this specific song and play bass at the same time. And I have these clear stop points that that I stop and the bass will start in the video. So it's a seamless thing of bouncing back and forth. Whenever I stop, it's still playing, but then you're seeing it, not just hearing the idea of
Yeah.
the bass keeps going even though I stopped. Now
Yeah.
you're seeing it. So the idea of giving people a frame of reference of like the kind of sounds that we use, and also just to be clear, we're really the only one of these kind of hybrid, especially because we're so heavy on electronics. The
Hmm.
idea that we still use, like I still build instruments and we're still constantly using power tools and so on and so forth. And it's not just about the idea like if you're not in our environment, it would be
Hmm.
impossible for anybody to recreate our music
Right.
because I'm always saying every time that we work on a new project, I literally go and create a new sample bank for everything. So then I go and film new stuff. So that way it's not just dragging around the old tropes over and over again. And that
Yeah.
was one of the things about Abstinence that had in clarification of what Abstinence is, the idea that like also from the very beginning I said I wanted to write performances. I didn't want to write like songs that I'd be dragging out over and over.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah. I was being abbreviative. I was being abbreviative.
I got totally
Um,
understood. Totally
Yeah.
understood.
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
actually, to me, that gave a good launching point
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be able to articulate this because
Yeah.
then, like, for me, the idea of like that was a huge, the decision to do performances and not songs per se really
Hmm.
did create a problem very quickly for us as far as like memorability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in other words, like because
That's a
we once we wrote a new performance, we didn't do anything from the old songs.
Hmm.
So it was
Hmm.
like so it wasn't like an album, although it was an album, right? So
right.
Yeah.
then it had this blurry line that people just really didn't understand. So then even people who know us from the very beginning that were at our earliest shows, they
Hmm.
couldn't tell you outside of like a few songs like we're playing level 7 which is from our original demo tape.
Yeah.
Outside of a few songs they couldn't really tell you the name of any song, they just remembered seeing us.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that created a problem because like the industry says, what? Create something that's catchy, short, and that's going to stick in their head, and that something that they can hum, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Start your lyrics seconds after the music
Say that
starts,
again?
Start your lyrics seconds after the music starts, man. There's
Right.
no long intros. There's no long intros anymore.
Right. Right.
That kind of thing.
Exactly.
Hey,
No
you know,
intros, and
yeah.
all that the sonic palette has to be comfortable
hmm
to the listener.
Yeah.
So then the idea of coming from it from massively different sonic perspectives, like a favorite of mine is the idea of using a drill on metal and then slowing it down.
hmm
And then basically when you slow it down, now you have all these dope arpeggios.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right? That
Yeah.
then you can take and then tune, and they sound like a synth, but
Yeah.
they are not.
But they are
And
not. Yeah.
so like, so that kind of thing to me, like it's the joy of really what industrial is. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the more that people consider like art forms that are really kind of more dancey as the only form of industrial. Like there was somebody had gotten mad about that I had posted about that I said that future pop, or as I said, future poop was not industrial. And so then
Oh yeah.
they argued the point, and I said, all right, let me go back, since you obviously don't know the sonic history of all this. I said, future pop sounds exactly like mainstream early 90s club music.
hmm
And I said, just with a different vocal. And so I proved my point that I just searched a 90s techno hit compilation, and then I scanned through and found exactly a point that sounded exactly like quote unquote modern industrial. And I said, here. And I said, so now if your music goes back, if the origins of your music sounds more like this, and I played that song, I said, then this, and I had played Skinny Puppy 200 Years, or no, God's Gift Maggot.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. What a great
Yeah.
song.
And I said, so if this is the difference between what this music sounds like. I said, to me, if your music sounds more like 90s techno, 90s mainstream, and it was mainstream techno, not even like dope techno.
Right.
It's like so they're not going towards like Aphex Twin or Square Pusher or so on and so forth. They're just going to where it's like,
Yeah.
and then now add a distortion to the bass drum. So it's
Yeah.
but you're still getting the same anti-funk, anti-vibe that kind of, and every song sounds basically the same.
Yeah.
When I say song sounds the same, I mean the idea that like, the what's considered the diversity of the art form, you don't have. Like, so we sat perfectly in the pocket of, Tear Garden, or Legendary Pink Dots, or 100-Foot Jesus, or Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy, and showing the idea that all these things existed and Einstürzen and Cabaret Voltaire, all this stuff existed, and nobody saw that there was this difference, even though they were drastically different band sounds output. But it was all comfortably industrial.
Yeah.
Move forward 10 years, and all of a sudden, like, there's all this breakdown. How'd that happen? Well, I mean, like, we all have, like, we can all talk about that, but to me, my major point is not how, but the fact that it did.
Yeah.
And that we don't really acknowledge that part. What happens is everybody argues the how.
Yeah.
Instead of the what. And because the what we can point at. right? Like, so the success of mainstream industrial actually killed a lot of the nights because you had DJs that would play whatever the audience wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, you had like, in the 80s that worked because the DJs, we were so far away from wherever we were DJing, you couldn't just go and talk to the DJ.
Yeah.
So you had to trust what the DJ was going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move forward, all of a sudden, then you have a situation where, oh, well, now the bigger clubs are closed, and now we're in smaller clubs where people are used to just walking up and making requests. And it's in a culture that's used to the idea of like, we had to wait until that song played again on the radio or whatever the hell. You know what I mean? Like, I hope I hope the college
on the
DJ
radio
that played it, I hope they play that song this week.
Yeah.
Thing, right.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge change from the idea of I can hear this anytime I want. And so, which is dope on one side. But then on the other, if it then if it then creates an expectation, and it does in the club, where people say, well, now I want to hear the same thing. So you'll hear DJs talk about over and over again about how they get requests, especially people who play a lot of like, the more accessible industrial nights. They're hit with requests, and then like, 2 songs later, the person's like, well, you didn't play my song yet. Yeah. It's just like, what did you think that I was just wondering what songs to play? Like, that the DJ didn't have a plan of the songs that they actually wanted to play. Like, it's like, okay, like, look, I put my money in the jukebox and I told it what to play, and like, it's a couple of songs later and it still isn't playing it. And so because of that to me then creates a very big it removes a lot of the core of what made industrial really be something that would bring people from the outside into it, right? Because then it became cliquey. It became all about like, like when it became about fashion. I mean, like, I've dressed eclectically since I was 14 years old, but I don't care about that. That's not like, I'm not like, I've never done a night, any of my nights that I produced for the entirety of my career, I've never said that you had to dress like anything. There was never like, I mean, and just in full disclosure, like, Michael, because of his professionalism, he asked me, well, like on stage, like, how exactly do you want to dress or whatever? And I said, well, to me, the uniqueness of Abstinence is the idea that like everybody is who they are. Like Jerry is a lifelong metalhead. So like, why would I expect him to dress like, like a punk rocker or something? And like, and likewise. So I just said like, we're all professionals that have been on stage for decades. We've been on stage for 40 plus years. Like, like we're going to look like we look. So then I was just like, whatever you feel comfortable wearing on stage, wear that. It's not like, no, you're going to wear this. And by the way, here's your tux, and here's your dance steps.
You do realize you've opened the door to Michael coming up on his drum set naked now, right?
Yes.
I've already done performances naked, so that's
playing the skins in a skin.
Playing the skins in a skin.
Yeah, we gotta sell those tickets, man. So I gotta figure out some way to like separate myself from everybody else. Like
I'll say
if everybody's going on stage with no shirt, I'm gonna go with no shorts and no shirt.
Right.
Dangling. Coming dangling.
Awesome.
That's cool. Well, that's
take it one step further from Red Hot Chili Peppers, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no socks.
Except no sock. Yeah.
No socks. Hey, we're hardcore. If you're taking off your clothes, take them off.
Take them off. No socks, motherfucker.
Oh my God.
I swear. I get I guess what's the thing? the thing right now is what are the main things that that I'm looking for? What do I think of music nowadays? The different my colleagues and everything. What are we gonna could do next? What are we gonna pull up and put up in the throw up in the air? You know, don't know. I like we can keep making music, keep creating, adding some diversity in different forms and fashions. I'm looking forward to doing that. I mean, I can't, I don't have that luxury of the magic that I was born with just to come vamp up on some shit. But what Darryl's done for me is that I sit in and I play my bass or yeah, my bass. I have a synth, a bass synth that I have also, and I'm just looking forward to getting the mechanics and just getting some things done. I'm not I like talking about it, but I want to do, you know, I want to
Sure.
do it.
I think what you're alluding to is there is a Levi 2.0 that is coming
Yeah.
into the world, and
Yeah.
you are, like I said before, you're an elder statesman in this game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is an elevation of another level of your artistry and your talent. I mean, you're
Mhm.
always going to be able to contribute
Yeah.
to
Thank you,
this
man.
culture and this genre. And
Yeah, because
you know, I think the world needs to accept that the Levi that they knew is now like leveling up into another version, but you're still
yeah,
with us, and you're
thank
an
you.
amazing person who deserves to be heard still, and you
Yeah.
have the tools and the technology now to continue that legacy, but now in a different fashion. I mean,
Yeah.
the vibe that you are is still going to be on tape. So
Mhm.
that's not going to change. It's just the methods that you use to disseminate that
Uh-huh.
is going to be different.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So
That's beautifully put, Michael.
Right.
really, I can kiss you.
Right. Well, and it's also, it's, to me, it was important, like when I saw that you were available,
Mhm.
you know, I mean,
Yeah,
and by the way, it's actually, it was Dre, just to be
yeah.
clear, it was
Ah,
Dre that had said from the very beginning, when Dre got at Abstinence, the first thing he said was he brought up your name.
Oh, okay.
Dre's good
So it
people,
was
man.
Dre from the very beginning who
Yeah.
said, like, you know, yo, we
Yeah.
get Charles. And I was just like, well, I said, I don't really know Charles. I said, I don't know Charles, and not really.
Uh-huh.
I don't know Charles. I can't, like, and he was a no. I'm tight with him, so on and so forth. And that was, and
Yeah.
so that was the thing that started the process. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so,
Yeah, you know,
yeah. So,
I know Dre was always I always wonder, I go, where's his brother? And he's like, we were in San Francisco. In San Francisco, Thrill Kill had set up shop there. And so I would go every other weekend or whatever. And I saw him at a rave. And it wasn't like a rave, like
mhm.
it was a fucking it was just like all of a sudden it was just a total vibe. And it was just like all I know is that I was pulsating and feeling it. And there was no band, no, it was just noise and everything.
Yeah.
And it was happening. And it was growing. And I felt like I was on acid or something.
Mm.
I was like, I felt seduced.
Yeah.
And it was on. And that's when I saw Dre. And I said, so then when I saw that, and I saw him that night, and everyone's talking, I go, hey man, you know, help me get a setup, you know. And I'm sure, being a musician, a setup to some people is like, I want to get some tech gear. I want to know what the fuck
Mm.
I'm doing,
Yeah.
you know. And I guess that's when he brought my name up. But
Well, no, it was more about like we were talking about, what were the components of what was going to be the new Abstinence,
Okay.
or the
Yeah.
new iteration of Abstinence, working
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
hostile takeover.
Yeah.
And so it was really, it was the idea of, okay, well, I was thinking like, oh, it would be
Yeah.
dope to have another bass player, just because
Yeah.
of the fact of the double bass aspect of how
Yeah.
Abstinence started. So
Yeah.
that was, and really, because of your sound sounds a lot like Steve's sound. So then, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a lot of correlation there. And I felt like the industry itself didn't necessarily like understand how, like, to me, I don't think that the industry understood how to utilize your skill set. I love you sliding your fingers
Yeah.
up the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, that, like, like, it did. I don't think that the industry knew how to utilize you no
Yeah.
more
I
than
hear
the
you.
idea of when we did
I feel you.
yeah,
I,
when we did the
yeah.
virtual, we did a
Uh-huh.
virtual festival in
Mhm.
2020. And the idea was, like, once again, everybody was looking at all the, like, every one of my friends was sitting home because they couldn't go on tour.
Yeah.
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 And so, like, here it was, but nobody was, like, the only people who they were streaming at that point were bands that were like lower level bands that I say lower level, I don't even like that term, but
Yeah. I
like
know.
the idea of like uh other bands that felt like, if they couldn't play
Uh-huh.
if they couldn't play in their play live in their studio online, then they had no use for them.
Mhm.
And so that's all the people they were picking for festivals and such, for like online festivals. That was, especially in those first like 5 months of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and we did ours in June. So then, like,
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
was still, we were still only 3 months out, and I literally decided to do that right when the pandemic was starting. But the reason why I bring that up is because it was the idea of like, hey, I know that you have something on something in your archive that that was recorded, of something that like nobody else has seen it, but it's in your archive.
Mhm.
Send it to us, and then we'll play it, and then we'll do an interview. So then, to
Yeah.
me, Abstinence also functions under a model, since we are as much a production team as we are a live performance element,
Performance.
Mm.
Yeah.
that the studio component functions
Mhm.
perfect for anyone's skill set. So
Oh,
then I felt like that's the reason why I was like, people, because you're somebody who, like, you were the hired gun when people were going on the road.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're not going on the road. So then it's just like, all right, well, we don't, like, now he has a different utility. To me, I was just like, well, actually, now this
Yeah.
provides a whole bunch of other options,
Other options. Yeah.
because then when you're not thinking the traditional band go out on the road thing,
Yeah.
it's like the other options for you are many, because, like,
Hmm.
as things grow and as you develop your second part of your 2.0 aspect,
Yeah.
then that's when you're like, you can sit in on all kinds of things, like,
Yeah.
theatrical productions,
Yeah. Yeah.
dance performances,
Can I can
so
I
on and
just
so
Yeah.
inter
forth.
can I just interject here?
Please.
I can't wait till Charles becomes Charles AI. That'll be that's gonna
I
be
hear you.
Yikes.
Yeah.
that's gonna
Yeah,
be
Yes.
yeah.
this is see, we're planning for you way ahead of you, man. So, like,
Oh,
like, there's
okay.
gonna be
Yeah.
a Charles AI here, where it's gonna
Yeah.
be like, like,
Yeah.
your genius is gonna become
Uh,
part of
uh,
of an algorithm.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Yeah.
actually, that'll
And
be
then he
our
will
cue.
control the world. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be our cue. Or Mike Richardson, who's the person who's developed, he's our cue, if you will,
Ah.
for developing like developing new technology. So then like he would be the one to sample and take and create a, like build some kind of module that would then like
Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah, Charles, Charles, you could just think whatever you want to do, and then
Yeah.
it'll
Exactly.
it'll
Yeah.
exist
Yeah. Yeah.
algorithmically. Like
Yeah.
that's where we're going with you. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to.
Excellent.
Neuralink.
Yeah, Neuralink.
Neuralinks.
Neuralink. They have
That's where we're going.
Neuralink.
Hey, just to
Neural-
put it out there,
neural
I
vide.
volunteer to be the first person to have the brain implant so I can hear you live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They have that. They have that now.
yeah.
I saw they have a little chip.
Mhm.
They put this shit in your head. You
Sure.
say it's on.
Well, maybe we could do that on stage. You can pull out one of the drills, put it in
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
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 So,
Hey,
yeah. So
the-
speaking of stage, the idea of like Dark Force Fest, like
Mm.
to me, I feel like the opportunity. Firstly, I feel very thankful that Jet had included Abstinence, because like Abstinence doesn't fit the like, like while everybody else are on Spotify and such, we're on Bandcamp and YouTube only. We and Vimeo. And so we boycott all of those platforms. And so we don't fit from a lot. Well, I mean, obviously why we boycott Spotify and like, why we support Bandcamp, that's pretty obvious. And why we don't support any other vulturistic platforms that steal people's art, and like Vimeo on demand is actually like the Bandcamp for video.
I mean,
Yeah.
could we elaborate on that and just say like you have to stand on, as the kids say now, you have to stand on business on something. So the legalities of being on things like Spotify are a little intrusive for a band such as Abstinence. It's like when you're being an activist and you're saying the things that need to be said, like you're fighting against the whole the systemic issues that are there, and that is exactly a systemic issue in
It
itself.
really is. Yeah.
And for me, it's like I understand their usefulness and their what it is to be an artist, and sort of feel like you have to be part of that machine. But there are times too where you could just decide, maybe I'm not going to be part of this machine, and of course it's probably going to be to my detriment to a certain point. But like I said, as the kids say, I have to stand on some kind of business here. So I just don't choose to play in that playground. I will deal with these other playgrounds instead.
Sure. And also like, it with the core of the concern of trying to utilize those platforms are so hyper focused on the idea of how many people are engaging them, that it doesn't behoove a band like Abstinence to be on a platform like that, firstly, and secondarily it's like, if you the idea, the vulturistic aspect cannot be removed from the picture. The idea that like, I mentioned those other platforms not because I thought they're cooler than the other platforms. It's because they only take a small percentage and the artist gets the lion's share.
Yeah.
If somebody takes 18% out, man, if you want to deal with the storage and the e-commerce solution and so on and so forth, you want to deal with that, take 20. Take 20%. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But it's the exact opposite with Spotify, and even further, because like, you're not getting 20% of the share. You're getting 0.000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fractions of a
You're
fraction.
getting a fraction of a penny, right? Exactly. And like, and so to me, the idea of like that Jet had said like, okay, well, because of Abstinence's standing, like, like I think
we get to
put that is
we get to exercise, right? We get to exercise exactly like what it is that we are, which is like we're not following that. This is a movement, and like we're gonna be in this this community that believes in being parts of a movement, and we're going to just kind of like for one brief moment remove ourselves from the machine, as it were, and present you with something that is, you know, realistically a free sort of machineless, ironically, element to this community. You know, like going back to what it is to be an artist and what it is to share in a community without having the algorithm of Spotify telling you you should watch us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also I want the reason why I was giving Jet the credit for that is because, like, you know, Jet knows who Abstinence is. I'm sure that the rest of the people that were on the choosing committee did not, is my point.
Right.
So the idea that, like, he showed honored the idea that, like, you know, Abstinence is the oldest industrial band in the there's nobody else in the tri-state area that's been around even nearly as long.
Yeah.
And most of them have, like, you know, most of the bands that started even in the late 80s into the early 90s, most of them pittered out before 2000 showed up, and then they did some reunion shows, but, like, you know, none of them stayed dedicated. And even more so, the idea that, like, Abstinence represents a form of industrial that's also not that's rooted in the core parts of components of industrial, but isn't retro either. So,
Right.
like, you know, so, like, when you hear our music, it doesn't sound, it just sounds like it does. It doesn't have necessarily a dated or whatever sound to it, just because
No, it really doesn't. Yeah.
Mm.
you know,
I mean,
because it wasn't written for a sound and a time.
yeah.
Mm.
It was
I
written.
am incredibly happy that I've discovered you guys through Levi.
Same.
I mean, honestly, I've been going back through your catalog, and you're right, it's timeless. It's you. It's very enjoyable. I mean,
So,
Well, thank you so
the
much.
themes.
are you guys gonna be there at Dark Force Fest to see us?
Where
Yeah.
is Dark Horse Fest?
That's in
Yeah.
Parsippany, New Jersey.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a little hard for me from Seattle, but
Yeah, right, exactly.
but yeah,
Coast to
I
coast.
definitely want to get out there to do that. And sort of speaking about the parts that mean the most to me for your music is obviously one of the main things, other than it just sounding absolutely fucking incredible, is the political and the social aspects of it.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people that don't really jive well with that. I do big time, and it's in my writing, it's in the stuff that I do, it's in the way I spend my money, for crying out loud. They're like, oh, well, if you're not going to buy this, you can't buy that. And I'm like, damn it, you're right, I can't. They're like, oh, you're good with that? I'm like, fuck yes, I'm good with that. I've got very little control in this world. I use my dollar to fucking exercise what I
Right,
do have.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Take control where you got it.
exactly, so going back, and looking forward, back the mid 80s, you got a younger Darryl. You're living your life. It's mid 80s or whatever.
Yeah,
Socially,
I was 21 years old.
oh, okay. That's a good time. That's a good time. Socially and politically, what were the things going through your mind when you decided to make it into Abstinence and have a voice and do what you do?
Well, really,
What were the
just the
things that
idea.
meant the most to you in that
Yeah,
time?
like I said, the idea, the opportunity to really, you know, Mike had sent a message to me about, it was a interview from Nivik, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like after, like, you know, the first interview after the last Skinny Puppy show, and like, you know, what Nivik's kind of final take on things. And he was like, well, you know, the thing that he felt that was missing in industrial is that you could do anything with anything.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah.
to me, that's been the core of Abstinence to start with, of the idea.
Excellent.
So then 21-year-old me said, when I started Abstinence, said, this gives me the capability to do whatever the fuck I want, versus the idea of, like, as I said, hardcore punk rock had like, there was a certain way that hardcore punk rock had to sound.
Yeah.
And so then to me, the idea of I could write anything, I could take this in any direction. That was the thing that had inspired me then and inspires me now, which is why, like, it's important to I always refer back to myself, then, like, call it ego, call it whatever you want. But what I do is when I'm composing, I always go back and I listen to original Abstinence, and I'll listen to the archive to kind of see the flow and so on and so forth. So that way, like, to stop from the idea and guarantee that I'm not going to be listening to whatever some new thing and say, ooh, Abstinence should sound like that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, I never had to sound, because people said, well, well, do you think, like, in interviews, people would say, well, do you think your music sounds like blah, 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 or you were heavily influenced by blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, well, Abstinence existed for 6 years before that band was a band. So
Yeah.
like, how would they be?
That's probably where they're hearing their influence.
When, like, well, was 9 Inch Nails influential in the development of Abstinence? It's like 9 Inch Nails wasn't even a band when Abstinence started.
Yeah.
Like,
or you can answer it like George Carlin. You just go, no.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, really, I feel like it's more like Monty Python, like, like,
There
I'm
you
in
go.
the wrong room, like, oh, I thought this was abuse. Oh, it's so like, it's like, but all joking aside, the idea that, like, it was really important to have something that didn't speak to mayhem, because that was the thing that was, like, the thing that got, like, when I think of all the punk rockers that I grew up with and the notable people, so on and so forth, the people who got remembered were all the people who were, like, out of their head, so on and so forth, right? It wasn't all the dope people who I met that were the most literate people that I knew, the people who were the most culturally open that I knew, so on and so forth, that were open to so many different things, where we were talking about, like, the idea of different genders long before the 2000s came. And all that other stuff, and like, so, like, to me, like, the idea of, like, where this world that enabled so much, I felt like that's also the reason why, for me, it's important to stay true to my 14-year-old values. Right. Like, and
That's
like,
beautiful.
people say that, like, well, it's like, it's immature, you grow up and then you'll learn, and you learn the realities of the world.
Yeah.
It's just like, no,
Yeah.
the realities of the world I was clear about the realities of the world. Now I've just lived them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only difference, is the idea that it was more refined idea, and then understanding, like, oh, okay, well, there's a nuance there, but I wasn't wrong. In other words, like, it's like your values as a teenager, of when you come to a grip of what is wrong, and you say, this is wrong. And when you're, 10, 12, 15 years old, it's a blunt wrong.
Right.
Now,
there isn't a context.
Older,
there isn't a life context to it.
Well, where I was going with that is the idea that, like, then people turn into adults and become compromised. So the situation didn't change.
Yeah. Right.
But now all of a sudden there's a justification or a qualifier put to it.
Yeah.
And to me, fuck a qualifier. Fuck a qualifier. Like, my father was clear with the idea of, like, what's wrong for somebody you don't what's wrong for somebody you don't like is wrong for somebody you do like.
Yeah.
And so to me, this kind of notion of, like, I hear, like, people will say all the time when I'm talking about industrial, they'll say, well, why are you so fervent in industrial? Like, I like a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't say that I didn't. All I'm saying is the idea that, like, much like me being a first generation metalhead, if I go to a Meshuggah show and you try to play Rat,
Yeah.
you will find yourself in trouble.
It sure is.
So I'm
Okay.
just saying the idea of truth in advertising.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so the idea shouldn't be like, industrial shows shouldn't be like everybody has the same gear and everybody knows what everybody's doing because I know what gear you created that with.
Yeah.
And so to me, the joy of playing industrial is going back to your question, or sticking with your question. The
Yeah.
idea is that, there was nothing better going to shows and you didn't know what was going to be on stage and
Yeah.
nothing was what it looked like.
Do you
Oh, that
remember?
thing does this. Okay, well now you do. Oh shit! Look at
Yeah.
oh shit! I couldn't believe it. Oh my!
Do you remember Survival Research Laboratories?
Of course,
Yeah.
I could send you a picture of when I saw SRL when when they came to New York last.
Yeah, they just fucking blew the top off my damn head. I mean, really.
SRL. Yeah,
Yeah.
once again, but these are all the foundational things.
Yeah.
That SRL was the first industrial thing I ever saw.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what really drew me in. Them, the Einstürzen die Neubauten, that very early stuff. Cabaret Voltaire. I can't remember the French composer, that thing he did that some people said Einstürzen die Neubauten ripped off. I can't remember what it was now, but like old music, and I think it was the 30s when it came out. But that stuff, that and watching like Rocky Horror, like when I was in high school, my friends and I were the art fags. That's what they called us in high
That's
school.
what they called us.
Yeah. And so we would sneak out of the house in the middle of the night with a little realistic cassette recorder, and we would go way deep into one of the neighborhoods, find a culvert, and just go like 40-60 feet into a culvert, a drainage culvert, just stunk to high hell, but the echo was insane.
Yeah, it was.
And we would sit in there making music. Just me, my friend Roger, my friend Paul would just sit in there, and we would just start singing and chanting and whatever with the big echoes. And then we would play that stuff for our friends. And that was sort of our little art movement thing. Now, I know you're an educator, Darryl, and this is kind of for both you and Michael. Considering the this catapulting into a scene that can happen when you're young. Do you have any words of wisdom for the younger generations that are just starting out in music and art, and in anything that you can tell them?
Well, so I will say it from the perspective of how do you become what Chuck D referred to as a free artist? So I'll say it specifically from the idea of playing industrial. So if you plan on playing industrial, don't make sure that you have a job. Don't think that industrial is going to support your career, because you'll be forced to make choices that will be less industrial and less interesting than what you actually wanted to do. So
Excellent.
if you actually want to do something, make sure that to me, I've had a full art life. I've been creating since I was 8, and I've been lucky enough to have generated a vibe, respect, whatever, attention in the industry. And my students would say, "Mister, there's only you only have a few videos that have more than a few thousand views. Nobody cares about your art."
Yeah.
So to me, from that perspective, sure, if you're going to go by that, yeah, I guess nobody cares about my art. But the idea, if I go from all the things I've done through my career and touring and so on and so forth, and all the shows and all the people that I know, and like the idea that such an eclectic band can generate such a prestigious lineup of people like Charles and Michael
Yeah.
and such. And so, like, so I'm being self-referential to show the idea, like, you can have a great art life and do a lot of interesting stuff and never, ever have to sell out. I never had to kiss anybody's ass. I never had to play anything I didn't want to play. Sure. Did I do all the big shows that I could have done had I done something different? Nope. But I played everything that I've done, everything I wanted to do. And that in May, I turned 60. And the idea that, like, this idea that I had when I was 21 still works.
Yeah.
So have a career for yourself, have a focus for yourself, and then practice, work, experiment, and always strive to be more you. Now, maybe more you may sound like somebody else. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Just be you.
If that's you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as you can be you and be true to yourself, and every time that, like, somebody asks you, are you happy? Right? And this is so important.
Yeah.
I can put a period on it on this. Because Charles had mentioned, because we've been dealing with some tech issues, and he was kind of stressed. And I said, bro, we literally are only doing this to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're only doing this to have fun. And if there's a moment that I'm not having fun, there's no reason to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I don't need to be in some industry perspective, like have somebody cracking the whip over me saying, like, look, Montgomery, we need this record now. And I don't need any of that. I don't care. I don't care. And nor do I want to beg for fans or beg, like, it's make music for people who would be interested. My first mentor, and Kim Cascone, total period. He said, if you can get 2,000 people, find those 2,000 people that would be interested in your art, to be interested in your art, you can have a vibrant art life. And so don't ever think that because you don't have millions of people, millions of followers, and so on and so forth, that, like, and a billion likes, that, like, your art isn't relevant. If you care about it and it matters, then it's relevant. So that's my advice.
Excellent. Michael?
To expand on that, I mean, really, you brought up something that I think is very important, and I think my advice would be, if you are an artist in this, as an artist, just in general, if you're an artist, whether it's music or anything else that you do, life is always going to come at you. And if you really are confident in who you are as a creative individual, as an artist, my best advice for you is always create, no matter whether it's going to be something useful or not. It's about honing what is inside of you, because you're going to be called sometimes to really share who you actually are as an artist. And when you hit that record button, what comes out comes out. And then there may be a point in your life where what was recorded is who you are. And accept that and embrace that, because it is who you are. And this is the mark that you leave on this planet that will hopefully last well beyond your existence here. So it just really is who you are. So be confident with that, and be humble with that at the same time, because you may not like what it is that you're putting out there, but if you're really truly an artist, you're going to have 5 minutes to create art, because that's all you have, and that's what it is, and that's the mark. And embrace it, because again, the other part of that equation is always be developing yourself. explore as much as humanly possible. I mean, I explore. I wish I would have explored more.
Mm.
Um,
Me
I mean, don't like limit yourself to any particular thing. If you want to write something that sounds like somebody, that's fine as well too, but always allow yourself to just
Yeah.
take your brain off for a minute and just go somewhere and dig deep into what it is and who you are as an artist, because it's that thing that is you're looking for to imprint on something that's going to outlive you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll
Excellent.
actually, interestingly, I had a young student that was a young person who was part of a program out in Jamaica, Queens that I work with, and he had asked me. He's an R&B. He's a young R&B musician,
Mhm.
and so he was making all these down tempo songs and such, and he was like naming all these people. I don't know who these people he was referencing, but he kept naming them. And the point to that was the idea that I said, bro, what if you keep naming other people and you keep creating music that sounds like all these other people? Like, if that other band already exists, if that other artist already exists, then what, you're only going to be a mediocre version of that other artist,
Yeah.
but you're going to be always a dope version of you.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mm.
So,
That's
like,
powerful, man. That is
so
so
like,
powerful.
I
Yeah.
was like, I don't care what the genre is. To me, it's the idea, like, how do you rarefy yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that only comes from exploration,
Right.
Yeah.
exploration
Right.
within yourself. Like, you learn about the things that you sonically like to hear, that really vibrates your, I mean, if there's a way to explain to people what it feels like to create and to make something that hits, like it does,
Mhm.
like you feel it. It's like your body, like, you get this signal that comes into your skull, and you feel it all the way through your body. It's like a vibration,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of like, yeah, this is me somewhere. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to articulate it, but this is definitely me.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you're in that constant pursuit of that feeling,
Feeling.
and
Yeah.
you only find that by continuing to explore within yourself and within whatever part of art that you create.
Truth.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Yeah.
So,
So I guess
Joey.
Joey.
Yeah, thank you guys. Great answer, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
Darryl, so your website states that you've utilized tunnels, decommissioned military bases, warehouses, bathrooms, abandoned buildings, basements, freeway underpasses, various environments as sound laboratories to create unique soundscapes that coalesce with power tools and a variety of traditional and analog or digital instrumentation and bombastic percussion. I think that's like one of the most creative ways I've heard to add to a rich tapestry of music, to be honest, and a band
Thank you.
sound. Sure. And I was
Yeah.
wondering, like, what are some of the challenges you've ran into in recording that way?
Actually, the funny thing is there's absolutely no challenge. Like, the beauty of it is the idea, like, uh there was Evans. The first military base we went to was Evans area.
Mm.
So what
Mhm.
was dope was like it was in this sweet spot of time. So it was in the 80s, these military bases had been decommissioned. So then, like, there was only a fence, and like we went in and did all kinds of stuff. And like, but we were like, we went in like the Army Corps of Engineers, and then we came out like it was like Mission Impossible. Like, nobody can ever know we're here. And
Yeah.
then, you know, then you go from that to, like, like, rockers found the place. And then it's like, now there's graffiti. Then
Yeah.
they're leaving beers.
Yeah.
Then they're leaving
Yeah, they're
evidence. They're
leaving
starting
evidence.
fires.
Yeah.
And so we had done, when we did multiple crosswinds, we filmed inside that video. We filmed inside the theater of that military base.
Mm.
So we brought generators in and so on and so forth, and literally set up the whole thing with lights and so on and so forth, and filmed in this that I'm sure that we've taken off times of our life from, like, the dust and shit. Like, the residue must be hell. I
Oh
don't
my
Yeah.
God.
know. I'm
Yeah.
lucky I'm still moving. But
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
my point is the idea that it was wonderful because, like, you're going to places that just are open in the environment, so you can go anywhere, like going to the junkyard. Okay, well, I can just walk into the junkyard, and it doesn't matter. I can just go to these places. So for me, the act of recording in all these spaces was the idea of, like, it was more about how do we find them,
Yeah.
right? It was like, how do we get to them and such. And just living life, going through, like, like, trying to suss out where can I find new sound. And to me, again, the beauty of the art form is the idea that it forces you to do that in ways that if I was just playing in a rock band, I would pick up my bass and I'm good, pick up
Yeah.
my whatever my instrument is and I'm good. And so I feel like the opening of avenues to really reach in and to get sounds that are also, like, um often when I record with a camera for obvious reasons, because I need to have the thing. I need people to also be able to see the thing that's creating the sound.
Mhm.
And so but the interesting thing about recording samples through a always recording samples through a camera, if you think about the technology of the average camera is designed so that way when the grandparents are telling the story, so on and so forth, it's nice and clear.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
these are the of the prosumer consumer model. Like, that's the goal, is that
Yeah.
story sounds real clear and real crisp and so on and so forth, and that the
Yeah.
person in front of you sounds right, and that the environment around it then goes away.
Yeah.
So the idea of recording samples like that, to me, what happens is the perfect marriage of, you have the sound that then technologically I can enhance to make sure that that's present, but then I can have all the environment around it, and I can use that as much as I need to or want to, right?
Mhm.
So
That's
then it's
beautiful,
not
man.
just about the idea of um the hit of the sample. So,
Yeah.
like, in Back Your Night Forgot, there's a sample that keeps running, that
Yeah.
is of a crane that was moving, and it had the initial hit of, like, its bucket was connecting as it was lifting up. It was so it was like that, and then the second part of that is the trail of the sound going,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
laying behind. You never really hear the tail, but you'd know it if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I edited it out, you would know, oh
Yeah.
wow, okay, that sounds, now
Yeah.
the keyboard takes over there, but you don't really hear, there's something that gets lost.
Mhm.
So it's all those little things, right? Where you're not thinking about the idea of melody in the same way, that, like,
Yeah.
I'm not just thinking about, like, I have the palette of the world to work with, not just the number of notes that are given to us by
Yeah.
traditional music forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
that's the best thing about recording in those environments. So there was really nothing that was a problem. It really just presented all these wonderful opportunities, and great happy accidents. Because,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
go in to record
happy
one thing, and the idea is like, okay, I had the intention of recording this, but now you're going to go in. Now
Yeah.
that you're in the place, now let's get everything that we can, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
then you find stuff and get sounds that you didn't know you were going to need, right? Because you're recording and you're just recording. And for me, it's just like, keep the tape running.
Yeah.
So that way, keep it running. And then it was tape. It was literal tape then.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no,
so-
right. Yeah, the
so
good
it's
old
only
days.
changed. The digital format has changed because, of course, the camera here then is a lot quicker and so on and so forth and gets me awesome sound, but does the same exact thing, right? So I'm
Yeah.
not running out and getting field recordings in the same way as like somebody who wants to tight mic it and
Yeah,
to remove any sound. It's just like, well, I might as well be in a fucking studio then. Like, if I like
Yeah.
if I want to hear like in you had posted Delusions of Architecture. Oh, that's one thing
Yeah.
I do have to talk about real quick. But
Yeah.
so you posted Delusions of Architecture, like, a lot of the sounds in that were based on the idea of like, being in an auto body shop, so on and
Yeah.
so forth. And like, and
Mm.
so there's a lot of the sounds that come from that really were like ultimate surprises that we didn't even know sounds that we were going to be able to get.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that one struck a chord with me big time. Back in 2008, I was
Mm.
working on a found sound orchestra sort of concept. The Washington State Department of Transportation were digging a tunnel for buses, and so I'm walking around in the middle of the night. I've got my cell phone with me, and I'm hearing just a boom. So I'm trying to record this stuff, and just walking around the city, recording it. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to get down into this area so that I can get some better recordings, and it ended up just being a giant clusterfuck. Honestly, I have got so much material on a computer in my sister's basement. It's in a box. I need to dig it out at some point so I can start going through the stuff because it's just been years, and at this point, I'm sure I'm going to find some stuff I really like. But yeah, I was really enjoying the limitations of the digital recording side of it, the sort of convoluted sound that it would capture. That I was not real happy with it at the time and was wanting to take a good field recorder. But then I started playing it back a little bit later, noticing that, yeah, it does. It's got its own ambience to it. And it's really fun. That album, listening to that the other day, I played it like 6 times. So yeah, that's a fucking good album, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, and Delusions actually took 4 years to make.
Oh,
3.5 years to make.
yeah.
And
Well,
so
time well spent.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, and so that was kind of my nod to the idea of being in an EBN, and which was a kind of love letter to EBN of the idea that like that was yes.
Yes.
Ah!
There you go.
Yeah,
There we go.
As we were talking, it reminded me.
Exactly. And so like, the idea of like that really you see what you hear type thing, and the idea of also using quadrants.
Yeah.
So like my idea of quadrants, which I still utilize to a smaller extent, but I still utilize it. The point is the idea that like in EBN, we selectively picked the things that we wanted to show you, but you weren't seeing everything.
Yeah.
You only saw the things that we selectively showed you that then gave you a picture of the sample base.
Yeah.
Delusions, you see literally everything that is happening, you see it.
So I'm wondering if perhaps you had a little bit of an influence on Depeche Mode.
No.
I think
No.
what song is it? I can't remember. The one where they've got the chop chop, the scissor sound on it, and in the video you see the scissors chopping, and I'm wondering, because they're obviously trying to make sure you know what that is, and maybe they got a little bit of that idea from you.
They could have got that from EBN. I mean, who
Behind the
knows?
wheel?
I mean, like,
No, not Behind the Wheel. This is from like Black Celebration.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
the idea of the only reason why I say that is because like, EBN like at EBN's height, when they had created, before I got into EBN, they had done the video for the U2 Zoo TV tour.
Oh, cool.
So then, like,
Gavin
so
Friday helped out with that tour too. Well, all of the U2 tours.
yeah, so
One of my personal heroes.
oh, dig it. So
Yeah.
then, like, so when they done the video at that point, that was the largest tour ever to
Mhm.
use those screens and such at the time.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
there was the one song that they played that was an EBN song that was We Will Rock You, that was George Bush saying We Will Rock You.
Yeah, yeah.
So then
Yeah.
we will rock you. Yeah. And but like, but so that song really kind of was the break in a dope break in the idea of how really, to me, it split music in half. And then, like,
Yeah.
or it split industrial in half to me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
when I met EBN in 92. We had done a double bill at the Limelight.
Oh, cool.
And then immediately we became friends. And literally 2 months prior, we had both, week after each other, done headlining shows at the Palladium. And then when we got there, the Palladium, and it's dope because in Delusions of Architecture, and in videos that I've been posting, we have the making of the Palladium show. And so you can see as we're building this, which took 2 hours to build the stage and so on and so forth. And when we played there, MTV Dance Party was there. So like our metal was flowing up into the rafters. And like you can see a video of in the picture, there's
Oh my
our
God.
metal up next to the MTV Dance Party
Oh
scene.
my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so like, like I feel like the idea of like how delusions happened, and really, to me, that was the epitome of the time that Deathly was in the band. And so there was I have to be public about it because, like, there was a big break. The idea that, like, with Deathly and his mental issues and so on and so forth. And then that created, and once I was told during the Hell Lab production that, like, there was a female that said, we won't play the show if he's on the show. I won't play a show that he has anything to do with.
Oh, wow.
And then so that I said that he had to write something publicly, because I said, well, this is a Furnace show. Like, your company is Void Star and my company is Furnace. And if somebody won't play a Furnace show because of you, this is a problem. And I said, you have to then tell people. And then so that blew up to, he wrote a denial, and said that people were after him, so on and so forth. It would come out later that he was lying or whatever.
Yeah.
And so people had said at the time when I went to Chicago, funny, in 2018, we went to Cold Waves. And so it turned out that, like, I would find out 2 years later that because of his issues with some people out there, the whole time we were out there, they were watching him, i.e. me.
Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, and then they said, and then I had even the person who he had harassed and such, they said, well, you knew. I said, no, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I said, how? I said, he lives 5 hours away from me. I only knew what I knew what he told me.
Yeah.
I had never seen any of that, and everybody else treated him like, like there was no problem. So I was like, obviously, to me, I didn't think there was a problem.
Yeah.
I knew that he had issues with the person at hand, But I thought that they were just business issues. I didn't know that they were like this whole harassment thing. I just thought,
Oh,
like,
wow.
you know, just people who don't vibe and so on and so forth, and they work together, but they seem to have issues.
Yeah.
So then in any case, like, you know, so that led very quickly to me then saying, like, I need, like, you know, this became a split between us, because I said, like, you know, you have to either A, step up or not. He got madder because he said, well, you know, why aren't you, I've known you since, I guess we met in 92. So then he's like, you know, I've known you for all these years, and you're trusting somebody, the word of somebody who you just met.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, apparently, like, you don't, how can you know me and think that I'm not going to be that? I'm not that dude.
Yeah.
You know, if you think I'm some bros before hoes thing, you are insane.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're insane. Like, that's
Yeah.
not like, you know, if you did some fucked up shit, I'm going to say you did some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Period. End of sentence. And there's
Yeah.
no reason. And so, like, you know, so Delusions intentionally, when you posted Delusions, and then I posted the point
Got
of
it.
impact
Yeah. Yeah.
to say, like, well, I
You got mail.
it's running into that same problem, you know,
Mm.
and that's like, and it's a problem that a lot of bands are dealing with. Like, think about and to put it in like a celebrity context that we are not, but like to put it in the celebrity context of, like, think about it if you were in the fucking Smiths,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you've written all this amazing fucking music, but
Mhm.
because of this shithead that has
Right.
said this stuff, nobody wants to. So then people are boycotting the Smiths. It's like, it wasn't everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
everybody. Same thing with the Ramones.
Hmm.
You're in the Ramones, all of a sudden you're like, you know, you're hearing this other motherfucker saying all this dumb shit. And it's just like, wait a minute, this isn't what we think.
Yeah.
But then people say, well, somebody in the band believed that thusly.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, like, it's interesting finding myself in that position of like, okay, do I, since they're songs that I like, the core of Abstinence, I always create the core and then expand the development of, like, I create the frames, and
Yeah.
then I, like,
Yeah.
basically it's like I build the foundation and then I bring in everybody to build the house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're missing one part of that. You also send paperwork that says the views expressed within this are not typically the views of individuals within the band, or like you have to have this, like, you have to have this like, you just to go back to what you were saying earlier, is like somebody's gonna say some dumb shit at some point. You're like, you're gonna be in this band. We also have this disclaimer that you have to abide
You're
by.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Now there's a now we have paperwork. It's
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
but
That's
of course,
Yeah.
awesome,
but
man.
of course, this is, but that
It's
it's a
like
real
like a
thing, though.
consent form.
Yeah, right. But it's a real thing. The
But
idea
yeah,
that, like,
yeah.
now more and more you're finding the idea that, like, you know, you're in a band with somebody who you're like, wow, okay, they had abhorrent behavior or beliefs or whatever the fuck they're saying,
Yeah.
and then you're supposed to be like like, what exactly, like, I felt like in the middle of, like, what the hell do I do, like once I found out, of course, everything, I made everything public immediately as I
Mhm.
was finding out.
Yeah.
So to me, I felt like that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there was the issue of the artwork. In other words, I wasn't concerned that, like, I wasn't going to behave properly. My point was the idea that, okay, now I have this artwork. What do we do? Do I stop selling it because, like, you know, of all the work that we had all done, all the work that was done on that had nothing to do with him?
Yeah.
Firstly,
Yeah.
like, you
Yeah.
know, so let's just be straight up and blunt. For, like, the whole concept was mine. I did all the editing, so on and so
Mhm.
forth. I did all the mixing. I wrote all the songs. Except even the songs that he wrote, they were components of songs that he wrote, and then I made them whole.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
like, you know, so then what exactly does that mean that I should say? Anything that had anything to do with him, I
Mm.
will no longer do.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
was just like, I can't make that choice, because I cannot do that, because if they were his songs anything that would have been his song, I wouldn't have played. And I haven't even gone to play anything that like was a song that like if it was a song that he sung, he wrote the lyrics for it intentionally. So he wrote the lyrics for it. So then obviously I'm not going to play that song, even though it's just the lyrics, even if musically I had written most of the music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the idea of like, how exactly do you do? So then like Back Your Night Forgot, which is in our set. So that was a song that he played on live, but in the studio, it's me, John, and Brian. So then I was like, all right, so then this is a song we can do, because technically he was only brought into it in a live environment, not actually in the studio environment.
Right.
So like, but it's an interesting thing in this time of like, how do you deal with that? And it's easy for bands that have been around for 5 years. We've been around for 38 years.
88.
So 38 years, like, like most of the people's parents were, like the people that'll see us at Dark Forest Fest. The thing that I love about this, right, is the idea that it's a generation that has never seen us live.
Yeah.
Because
I gotta say, I'm super stoked to see you guys live. Are you ever going to be on the West Coast?
Well, I mean, we did in 2018 we did a
I don't know.
Midwest. 2018 we did a Midwest tour that was really successful.
Okay. What do you think
So-
about getting to Seattle? I mean, if I can arrange something for you in Seattle, would you be
Oh,
willing
we
to
would
come?
certainly. In other words, like my goal is always the idea of the kind of one-off model.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like the last thing that I'm trying to do is the idea, and not to mention the idea that I just live a really responsible life. So I don't have the time or motivation
You
to
wanted to.
take Abstinence on the road for like
Yeah.
weeks
No,
and
we've
months
got
on
a
end.
wonderful guy out here. Ali Majul. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I might be butchering it, and I'm really sorry, Ali, if I did, but he's a promoter for Machinimus, which is a festival that happens
Oh,
out.
I met him.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I met him.
And
He's really good. Yeah.
he's an absolute sweetheart. He's
Yeah, he
a
is.
total mensch, and I would love to see you guys make it out for one of those
Yeah.
festivals.
Yeah, we played Cafe de Nord way back when.
Oh, nice.
And we played Cafe de Nord in San Francisco in 93. Yeah, 93. And I performed with my noise project Operation Mindwipe in 2000 at 7 Hertz.
Wait, Operation Mindwipe. Okay. That sounds really, really familiar.
Operation Mindwipe is the other half of what I do. Like in 94 was the split, because I was doing a lot of noise-based things and a lot of beat-driven things. And I was like, I can't make Abstinence so schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So like, I can't have it where it's like, okay, we do this song and then we do this one song and then it's a 8-minute noise track. Like, I have to figure this out somehow. So then Operation Mindwipe became the kind of outgrowth, and it was easy because then Operation Mindwipe could be the catch-all.
Okay.
That I could do everything. So yeah, so I started that with the other guy from Abstinence, Mike Roberts, and Rob Psychotrope.
Okay. All right. So that's more territory that I'm feeling more familiar with you. So that's I don't feel like a complete tool.
No. That was
Because I mean, honestly, dude, I am so surprised that I haven't heard. I mean, maybe I did a lot of drugs way back in the day, and and it is quite possible there was abstinence back in there. But yeah, no, I'm so glad I've gotten acquainted with you, got to meet you and talk to you, and I'm looking very forward to digging deep into the abstinence library. Actually, I'm going to be hitting you up for some help with that.
Yeah, 100%. And I can send you videos and such. And that's the thing, the idea that, like, hence the idea of like having people like, Michael and and Charles and Jerry
Yeah.
and I mean, Jesus, John has been in abstinence longer. Like when John got into abstinence, he was still in Killing Joke.
Oh yeah.
And then so John has been in abstinence through Prong, Fear Factory,
Yeah.
and now he's almost been in ministry for almost 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, so for me, I feel like it never stops being humbling, amazing, like pinch me type shit to have all of these people, these really talented people, give a fuck about
Yeah.
a band that really
Gotta
has
be a great
not
feeling,
put
dude.
in the energy.
Yeah.
Like I'm not interested in being a rock star. So then I haven't put, like, literally when we were playing, like talking about playing Dark Force Fest, I
Mhm.
said, I went to the band and I said to everybody, I said, like, look, I don't know where we're going to be placed, but I guarantee, but we're certainly not a headlining act.
Yeah.
So here I am, like, Michael was in the studio with fucking NS. Dre is on tour with Puppy. Fucking, oh, like, they're doing all this stuff, and I'm just like, I have to tell everybody. I just want to be upfront that I'm not sure that this show will have the prestige factor that you may require, want, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it out to everybody. I said, so do you want us to take the show or not? And so Dre said, I don't care when we play, just we're going to do a show that makes people remember. And I said, great, because then
Excellent.
I knew that actually I had assembled the right team as well.
Yeah.
And it was like the idea that they didn't care about any of that. Just like, no, dude, this is dope. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
Right on.
And
Yeah.
so that to me, it made me feel good because, again, I really, when you're working like this, it's interesting. Create like, like Mike and I know each other from the scene, but like we haven't really spent a lot of time together. Then as artists, like, like with Abstinence, we've had one session, and then there's this kind of idea of like how things work. Like I have to do these individual rehearsals with everybody. The reason why I brought that up is because like we don't have that kind of like the old, we were just talking about this, like the old kind of like, you get in a band with somebody and you do rehearsals 4 times a week, 3 times a week, so on and so forth. You're seeing each other all the time. You're in the room, you're hanging out. There's tons of time that, but here it's like everybody gets together to work and then everybody goes back into their life.
Yeah, you have you have to be like a consummate professional to come into this and know that your experience in this game comes in one session, and you have done your homework before you walked in the door, and then you go, okay, where do I fit myself in this? And again, it goes back to what I said earlier about exploration of yourself, and this is the moment where who you are really is going to be put right in front, and it's like, here we go, this is what I'm about, and this is the exploration I'm going to do.
And it's like a jazz band in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
The idea that like, everybody needs to know their part, so that way when we hit the stage, literally the first time that we all will have been on all together as a unit is during
Yeah.
sound check.
It's during that,
Wow.
yeah, during the soundtrack. It's like that's and
That's
I've
gotta
been in
be
a lot of places like
nerve-wracking,
that.
man.
You know,
No,
no, not at all.
no,
I mean,
no.
if you do this
No,
enough, like
not for you, Mike.
no. I mean, I've done this
Okay.
enough in my career where I'm I'm pretty comfortable with doing enough of the homework, and then you show up and you
Sure.
just do the job, and
Right.
like you do your hellos and everything like that. But again, it's your professionalism that carries you through the rest of the rehearsal,
Right.
and then the sound check, and then the show. Like the show, I mean, I do get a little nervous, but really it's not nerve because I feel like once you hear the intro music and it's like game face time, and then your
Yeah.
professionalism kicks in and you're just like, okay, this is it. And
That is truly
yeah,
inspirational. Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, I
That's
mean,
good.
that's what it's about. Like when you do this, being comfortable within yourself enough to be professional, to walk into a situation, not having met any of the people in there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're being brought together for a purpose and for your energy and for your talent, and everybody knows everybody's their career paths. Like I know
Yeah.
Dre and what he's been doing, and Levi and John Bechtel and I are cool with each other. We've known each other for years, and
Yeah.
but to share a stage with him in this is going to be a different dynamic, because instead of knowing him the way that I do now, I get to know him in that one moment,
Yeah.
um in a different context, and in a way artistic context as well. So that's going to be
Mm.
cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
also just very quickly, I think the interesting thing about the idea of the model of having people meticulously work on their components, because of the fact that we work with a visual component,
Mm-hmm.
the visual component doesn't change.
Okay.
So then the timings, as long as you practice what you do
Mhm.
and you do what you do at the time that you're supposed to do it, everything works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really the model that can bring in a lot of different people, because then okay, they come on, they do this part. No different than, like I said, like in a jazz band, when
Yeah.
you would have somebody come in and like, okay, hey, I blah 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 is sick. I need you to come in and step in and sit on the shows.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna come in and like whatever the instrument is, they're gonna come in and you gotta nail all those songs.
Yeah.
Right? You nail
Yeah.
all the songs, so on and so forth. It's just like, you're looking at the sheet music. Well, the difference here, there's no sheet music, but there's
Yeah.
the matrix. So the
It's the
matrix fits
Matrix.
into the same
Yeah.
thing of the
Yeah.
idea of like, okay, well, I need to do this. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm figuring out the idea of like like, okay, well, when there's the traditional instruments that people are playing, and then like for instance, Michael is the first time that this is what's really inspiring to me, because like he said, like I knew he could play guitar, he could play any number of things,
Yeah.
drums,
Hmm.
whatever. But then I said, like, hey, I have this instrument that I built that's called the instrument. That's like, it's an industrial catch-all, springs, pipes,
Oh, wow.
all within
Cool.
this concise unit with
Yeah.
with drum mics on it, so on and so forth. So in any case, he starts playing it. And so it took him about a half an hour to find, like, as a traditional drummer, to go to like break any of the other stuff and say, yo, where do I actually find this thing? Because it's a thing you never like you're he was approaching something he had never ever played before.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it was not like, oh, I saw 5 of these the other day. Like, like I like
Yeah.
so it's like, but the dope thing was the idea of like, and the thing that's always inspiring to me, it was the idea that like a half an hour in, motherfucker's killing it. Because
Mhm.
then he understood, okay, this is how I could play it. And it's like, and that process gets developed over time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then as we rehearse, then it's like, okay, so now for these songs, okay, now I'm really learning how to work this. And because of Mike, like being like he'll be the first drummer to play this instrument, because usually it's played by a percussionist, myself or somebody else, but it's played
Yeah.
by a percussionist. It's never been
Yeah.
played by a drummer before. So then, like all these kind of things, the thing that's really amazing to me is the idea that like I will have rehearsed live with Jerry, I will rehearse with Christoph, I will rehearse with Mike, I will rehearse with the other Mike, so on and so forth. I will rehearse with everybody separately that's gonna perform. But then the beautiful thing is like when it all comes together, and like it's as inspiring for us as it is for the audience, because
Wow.
the audience is hearing a whole, but we're hearing the whole for the first time because we
Yeah.
only hear, okay, this component, these components together, these components
Wow.
together,
Yeah.
and then
Man,
hearing
that's
the whole and
fascinating.
seeing it and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That to me is the thing
That's
fascinating.
incredible.
So
dude.
it's going to be new to them as well as it is to us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
We're
that's absolutely fascinating.
we're
I
all
want to
going to
see
be
this.
yeah, we're all going to be going on this journey together.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Man.
So this is a good vehicle. Doing this podcast, we're gonna put the feelers out on the um
Dark Force Fest.
Dark Force Fest, and make it make it be known that there's something to look forward to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
No, for sure.
sure. And just to put a period on that, I feel that the probably the coolest thing about playing Dark Force Fest is helping the audience understand that retro doesn't mean old,
No, for
that
sure.
or stayed.
Yeah.
You know, that
Definitely
like,
not
you know,
stale.
that
No.
like
Yeah.
the performance
Yeah.
isn't something that they're like,
Yeah.
you know,
When they gonna get that
like,
to that part? Yeah.
yeah, these old folks coming out. Yeah, I guess. Oh, let's be polite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, and the other, I guess, the reason why I brought up the Einstürzen thing is the idea that also, not to shit on Blixa, but I mean, like, you know, he
Yeah.
used to be a force of nature on stage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and now he's a lounge singer.
A little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
In other words, he's
Mhm.
never like he had, and again, I'm not shitting on him, because in other words, like you're not gonna find a gap where I say I don't like Einstürzen. So that's
Right.
never gonna hear that. Simultaneously,
Yeah.
the idea is that like for me as a performer,
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
always been known to be an explosive performer.
Mhm.
The moment that I can't do that, and I can't deliver the show as I want to. Like the last thing I would ever want is like what I said about like playing my wife a performance from now and saying like, well, this is what it used to look like. I would never want somebody to go back and say like, I remember when Abstinence used to have a lot of energy. I remember
Yeah.
when, you know, so that to me is the thing, like, you know, and I feel like also with power tools, because we are so power tool heavy, I think that there's bands like Terrafact, who I performed with as well.
Oh,
I
wow.
performed in Terrafact a few times. Um, the I feel like power tools have been used for spectacle instead of instrumentation.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have people using cutter bits, so that way it's throw a lot of sparks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if you're really there for sound, cutter bits are really kind of a one-trick pony. They don't
They really
make
are.
a lot of, they only do one thing, because it's only spinning at one speed.
Yeah.
It's a tool
The
that
key
only
is
spins
putting
at
a synthesizer module inside the plate that is on the person's leg that they're doing it on.
right. Then it takes
And
all
then you can
but I'm
do
saying the
something with it.
instrument,
Yeah.
but as
Something
an instrument
spectacular.
itself,
Yeah.
it is the least versatile
Mm-hmm.
of like for a sound palette. It has the smallest sound palette of
Yeah.
any of the power tools.
Yeah.
So even a
Mhm.
circular saw has more of a sound palette, especially like if you use it like put on a wood blade and you use the wood blade backwards on
Oh
metal,
yeah, yeah.
you
Oh
know,
man.
and then so it doesn't cut into it, but what it does is because of the way that a wood blade is, it gives it it gives it a kind of and
Yeah.
that sound, in other words, that kind of edge gives the same thing, it does the same thing for metal that a bow does for a violin.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Oh,
then
that's
like,
that's
so
beautiful.
then
Yeah.
when people aren't coming at it from that perspective, right? Then that's the reason why like power tools turns into the idea of like I said, spectacle. So then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, during this part of the song,
Uh,
sparks.
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
sonically it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like, it was just human pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And like
It's
so
great for
then
that, but it falls flat musically.
yeah,
but it
yeah.
Yeah.
falls flat musically, right?
Yeah.
And so that's also the reason why I'm so big on the video aspect, to show the idea of all the different sounds that are involved, because otherwise, people could be fooled into believing the idea that like in the early days of abstinence, they didn't know how it was created.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
then those kind of things were lost. And then so the kind of combination of, I guess, abstinence before me and the EBN and then after,
Yeah.
um, it really, the marriage was also important because it then helped people understand all the things that went into the art form that typically they're not seeing, and that typically would just be a sample,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and worse yet would be a disembodied sample. So then
Yeah.
like, if it's a drill or a jackhammer, it was something that they got from some sample bank, so it's like a
Mhm.
Mhm.
perfectly recorded jackhammer with
Yeah.
no environment. Well, what do you have when you record a jackhammer?
Mm.
Just
Mm.
dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
in other words, like when you record a jackhammer, what are the components? And
Oh,
this also helps for people who are young industrial artists. What are the components when you're recording a jackhammer? What are the components you're actually trying to record?
I'm trying to record the what is it? The hydraulics.
Mm-hmm.
I like
And
the hydraulic sound, the thumping, and not just the thumping of the metal, but I like the hydraulic sound. I like the whirring of the engine. All that shit is important. And
see,
Yeah.
yeah,
right, see,
yeah,
and know what you also have? You have the road sounds,
yeah. The road sounds, all the ambient sounds around you.
right?
The sound of the operator going,
Yeah, right,
you know,
exactly. Right. Whatever
yeah,
what all those things,
yeah.
the sound of the jerk off that like, missed the sign and is sitting there honking the
Yeah.
horn. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever it is, like, like, go, there's whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
like, that's the beauty of the
Those
moment.
hidden little bits of treasure, dude. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I feel like it's really like it's music of life.
Yeah.
Like because
Yeah.
originally, industrial got called soundtrack for non-existent films,
Mm.
Yeah.
which I thought was Machinery's tagline, which I thought was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
At Machinery Records out of Germany.
Oh,
But the idea, to me, really, it does have that, like, it's the sound of our environments, and the
Yeah.
more that people can push for that kind of vibe versus the idea of like, well, it could have been created anywhere.
yeah.
Like the more that you personalize it to your environment, the more that you personalize it to the tool base that you use, or trying to find something else. Like how do you create something else? I don't know. Maybe it's not a power tool. Maybe it's the idea that you found this other thing, but find some fucking other thing. Look
Mhm.
for the other thing. Like that, there's no benefit. And I guess the if I had anything to like put as
So
an epitaph to my industrial nature, I would say that, like, there's no benefit. There was and is no benefit to selling out in the underground.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, there
There's
really
not
isn't.
enough money in it to
No.
fucking sell out. So you're selling out really fucking cheap.
Yeah.
If like, it like this isn't the place to come to if you want adulation and like, and like all the accoutrement that you think
Yeah.
comes with that, go to play something else.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
play something else. And so that way you'll be fine. You'll have a great art life, so on
Yeah.
and so
Mhm.
forth. But then you're not trying to put a square peg in a fucking triangle hole.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Excellent.
Well, on
Well,
that, let's do. Is there any what's the word should I say? Any information how we can get the push and present the
Dark Force Fest. Well,
dark
Dark Force
horses?
Fest is in Parsippany, New Jersey on April 20th.
Mhm.
Sorry, April 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Yeah.
We're playing on April 20th. I even resisted for a long time saying that, but then since they're announcing that,
there you go.
Yeah.
well, because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like if you're talking about a festival, we should be promoting everybody in the
Yeah.
festival
Yeah.
and not just
True.
talking about come to see us.
Yeah.
It's like come to the festival. It's an amazing festival. I think it does. And I let me give a very quick 2-minute promo for Dark Force Fest.
Yes.
I feel that they do a disservice by calling it a festival. Because when you think of a festival, you think of multiple stages,
It is.
disembodied stuff, overpriced stuff, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Whereas the Sheridan, firstly, it's done in a Sheridan that looks like a fucking castle. So
Nice.
there's the first part. Second part, the idea that it's now an international destination event every year.
Yeah.
So then
Wow.
the kind of people that you meet, the all the vendors, the
Mhm.
like the culture of it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
How friendly, you go outside and you're in the smoking area and you're meeting people, and then you go to the clubs and all the New York clubs all create New York and New Jersey clubs all create a club night within the venue. So after all the bands play, and by the way, the bands, if they do the configuration like they have for the past 2 years, what
Yeah.
happens is the entire firstly the whole complex becomes Dark Force Fest.
Nice.
Sort of like Ministry of Sound.
So it's huge. So then
Yeah.
there's two rooms that are across from each other where the bands play. Now
Yeah.
they're really smart that they stagger the bands. You never have to see a band and miss one.
Oh, good.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that layout is dope in itself. Just that, if that was all it did, would be amazing when you look at the lineup of bands that they have. But
Mhm.
then there are 6,007 vendors. There are teach-ins, there are panels, there are the training sessions, and then just dope places to chill and vibe with people of the culture, to meet people of the tribe, right?
Yeah.
I
And
want to
so
go
to
to
me,
this.
I
Word.
feel
This is
like
going to be my 56th birthday is going to be on April 23rd. So
That would be
I'm going to
good.
see if I can. I'm going to see if I can get out there. I doubt I'm going to be able to on this much notice, but holy
next
shit,
year,
yeah, next year.
I mean, our ultimate, if I have a goal for abstinence for this, obviously it's the idea that this year abstinence would play and then inform people why we are who we are,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then hopefully have a better position to play next year.
excellent.
Yeah.
And so
Right
that's
on.
kind of the vision that I have
Mhm.
of playing Dark Force Fest. So then,
All right. Well, now I've got a goal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, and a little, I'll give you a little industry insider thing. Just 2 days ago, I was having a meeting with Adam from Consolidated, and so we're working on a consolidated, if I have my druthers, what I'm pitching is a Myth of Friendly Fascism show.
Oh my God.
So that
Oh,
way,
man.
Myth of Rock, Friendly Fascism, and to do a combination thing of that. But for me, I want to produce the multimedia version of the original show that
Oh,
I
man.
saw back when they first
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. That would be so wild.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
that's what we're talking about now. And so that's definitely going to have Adam's planning on the idea. Well, like, and it's going to be interesting because I'm wondering what Mark. I haven't talked to Mark about this yet. I've only
Yeah.
been talking to Adam about it, but I guess like it's all relative. But my point is the idea that I'm really looking forward to that as well. Like as I've been like a fifth or sixth Beatle in Consolidated, it's been a wonderful
Nice.
thing also because I feel like Consolidated are the dead Kennedys of industrial.
They are absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I say
and
that's a
like
good analogy.
yeah,
Yeah.
then the
That is a
idea,
very good analogy.
Yeah.
and I feel like you call them dead Kennedys or the public enemy of industrial. Either
Yeah.
one works.
Yeah.
Both of those work.
All
Yeah.
three. Yeah, they're
Right.
diverse.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
because in
yeah.
other words,
They
like
they are the public Kennedys of
yeah, right.
industrial.
There we go. Right. Well, it's like, but just to give respect and order, like Public Enemy was the dead Kennedys of hip hop.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
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 Oh my God.
Like
Terminator X
dead
speaks with
Kennedys
his
came
hands.
first.
Holy crap.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Man.
so we're gonna push
So
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Thank you, like, just to have good time to sit and for us to just chill and chat. Like,
Yeah.
to me, all these kind of things, all the stories, like, when y'all were talking about, like, Mike on tour with Slick Idiot and all these things, like,
Yeah,
I feel like
Yeah.
all these things matter because, like, if we don't tell these stories, they go away.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
sort of the purpose of what we're doing with this. We want this to be
yeah.
artists supporting artists. It's not a fame-based thing. We're really about appreciating the people in this scene, the people that have meant something to us, the people
Yeah.
that are starting to mean something to us. Because oh my dear God, yeah. So I suppose on that note, we should probably start wrapping it up.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
damn, Darryl, Michael,
Mike,
absolute pleasure
It was
to
a
good
pleasure.
seeing you.
talk to you
Good to
Thanks
see
guys.
so
you.
much.
Yeah,
Good
it
to
was,
see you again, Mike.
it was absolute pleasure being here. Thanks, and
Yeah.
Levi, it's
100%.
always great to see you, and I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be a part of this with you as well, man.
We're
Yeah,
looking
thank
I love you,
forward to
brother.
big things.
And Anesh
Yeah.
Anesh says hello as well. He told me to tell you.
Yeah.
Tell
Tell him.
Inesh that Dharma says hi too.
I will. I will.
Yeah, definitely. I think you got my number.
I think
And
so.
of
Yeah.
course, I'm going to keep in touch with my man Darryl. And again, guys, I guess this is a wrap.
Yeah,
Yes.
guys, hang up for 1 second. But I
Yeah.
want to thank Darryl Hill very much and Michael Carrasquillo and Abstinence with Charles Levi as well.
No.
And of course, Joe Average. And thank you guys so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I really had a great time with you guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for
Right
having us,
on.
man. Thank you.
Honored.
Right.
Thank you so much,
Cheers.
Joey and Joe.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
You, Angel.
Cheers, guys. Peace.
Okay.